Now it's time for our next guest. Tyler Peck is an international award-winning prima ballerina and principal dancer at the New York City Ballet. This holiday season, she can be seen dazzling audiences in the New York City Ballet's production of The Nutcracker as a sugar plum fairy in the Dewdrop. See for yourself. Everyone, please give a warm BUILD Brunch welcome to Tyler Peck.
Thank you.
Tyler, thank you so much for being here. I mean, it's actually an incredible honor. My younger brother's a dancer, so I know how difficult it is to be a dancer and to grow as one. And the fact that you are starring in The Nutcracker is a huge, iconic honor. So it's really cool to have you here. Can you tell us about your journey, how you got to the Nutcracker stage?
Yes, well, I grew up in Bakersfield, California, so it was a long trek. And I actually came here first to be in The Music Man on Broadway when I was 11.
I've seen that.
You
I
were?
saw Broadway.
I played Gracie Ship.
Oh my God, I've seen you. Wow.
Yeah, probably.
Probably.
I was blonde and like this big.
Yeah.
So when I was doing that show, my parents took me to see the New York City Ballet's The Nutcracker. And I was sitting there and I was just completely mesmerized. And my dad always reminds me that I said, "Daddy, I'm gonna dance on that stage someday."
Wow.
Yeah, and you know, ballet, I grew up doing all kinds of dance, and ballet was actually my least favorite because I think it takes the most discipline. So when you're younger, I think it's maybe not as fun as the other techniques, but I'm very happy that my mother made me do it so that I could now be in, the New York City Ballet.
Right. And when you were a kid, you had to drive like 3 hours to dance lessons, right?
Exactly. My mother owns a dance studio, and she still does, in Bakersfield. But it got to a point where when I was 6, she was like, "I just want to be your mom." And also, I think that Bakersfield and the kids that you're dancing with aren't going to push you.
Right.
So she helped me find the best studio down in Downey, California. And my grandmother would drive me 3 hours there and 3 hours back, 5 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
And being a professional dancer, you are an athlete, and of course, the nightmare of any athlete is injury. And you suffered a really grave injury, and you've come back from that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think especially with ballet, it's such a glamorous art form that sometimes people aren't aware of how much hard work it is, and that we are top athletes. Mm-hmm. And I got into the company very young, at 15.
Wow.
And so when I was 18 and playing Juliet in Romeo and Juliet, there was a lot of back bends, and my back kept hurting, and I just kept thinking, oh, it's probably just growing pains. Yeah. And then it got to a point where I was like, something is definitely wrong, because they always say with adrenaline that sometimes the pain goes away, which it does. And then it just got to a point where when I was performing, it still was hurting. And it turns out that I had a stress fracture in my lower back, and so I was out for 6 months.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been hard.
What did you learn about yourself from that injury and having to basically take that time off? Because that could be really scary, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, especially somebody who had never not danced a day in her life, to actually not know what was going to happen, and you don't know if you're going to come back and you won't be as good, or if I kept thinking, am I ever going to be able to lift my leg to the back? Wow. It hurt me just to even turn around and say hello to somebody behind me. So as a dancer, it was a very scary feeling, but I think in a way it was a blessing in disguise, I think, because I matured, I learned how to be vulnerable, and I think that all of those things come across in my dancing now, whereas before I'm not so sure that they did.
Mm-hmm. I feel like most people most people who are successful find a way to spin those mistakes, accidents into something better. But can you describe a day in your life as someone of this company? I mean, it's so impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, so we start our day at 10:30 every day. We have ballet class, and it's basically like the time for us to warm up. It's not mandatory, but I take it every day. And then they can rehearse us from 12 until 6. And we have to have an hour off. So I guess my hardest day would be 10:30 class, 12 to 3 rehearsal, an hour off, 4 to 6, and then the show in the night.
Wow.
That's a long day.
That is a long day.
So sometimes I can be at the theater from like 10:30 till 10:30.
I sit here for 30 minutes and I'm tired at the end of it. It's like,
But sitting hurts me too. I think sitting is actually harder. I'd much
No,
rather
don't
be
give
at
it that.
dancing.
Thank you so much.
It's
Thank
not
you.
hard at all.
Don't
The easiest job ever.
What is is there a favorite moment you have in the show? I'm curious.
I think there's two. One is definitely when I do the variation, which you saw, where the angels are all around. And I think because I was that younger girl, like dreaming to be on that stage, to watch those girls' faces staring at you, like knowing that they're dreaming of being the Sugar Plum Fairy, and to be in the middle, like hopefully inspiring them, that definitely is a moment that like gets me every time.
Oh my gosh.
And then there's the tree that grows, which just never gets old. You know, it's like this magical New York moment where there's the Christmas tree that's 12 feet and it grows to 41 feet and it weighs like a ton.
Wow.
But every time I watch it from the wings because it's just like
Amazing.
Christmas time and my favorite time of the year.
Yeah.
Speaking of those young girls, I know you probably have a lot of fans out there who want to do what you do. So what advice do you give young dancers?
I think that you just have to dream big. I mean, I think I'm a prime example of somebody coming from a town like Bakersfield and making it to the Big Apple. And I think that if you love something, like especially dance, it's such a hard art form that if you don't love it, then it's not for you. But if you do, it's so worth it. There's nothing better than being on stage and dancing to the music and inspiring all the young dancers out there.
Yeah.
So I love it.
And you're not only being recognized on stage, you're also in the documentary Ballet Now, which is
Yeah.
produced by Elizabeth Moss, which is
Yes.
so cool. So what did it feel like to be a part of that?
I know, I was a serious fangirl
Yeah,
for sure.
Of course, me too.
The main focus of Ballet Now was just to bring ballet to the masses. You know, it's an art form that, you know, not everybody can be at Lincoln Center seeing the Nutcracker, and we wanted to get it so that people could see it at home and really see the behind the scenes. Because like I said, I don't think that people know exactly all of the hard work that goes into it and all the sweat and tears, you know? So this was totally a glimpse into the behind the scenes of what it took to put on 3 performances, and it was my first time ever like curating and directing, so there was a lot of stress.
And you were the first woman ever to curate that program,
Yeah,
so
it's amazing.
congrats, I'm with
So
her right
cool.
there.
Yeah, it felt like a huge honor, and I was very happy with the Music Center giving me the opportunity.
So cool.
Absolutely. Is there, since we're Broadway to ballet, what are some of the similarities, some of the striking differences between the two?
I think definitely not using your voice.
Right.
So because I started on Broadway, it was a very big switch to then be in the New York City Ballet and all of a sudden, you know, just express myself through movement. And, you know, a lot has to come just through the face. You don't get to express yourself. And so definitely when I got to do On the Town, and I'm doing a new show called Marie in Seattle coming up that we did at the Kennedy Center, it's really fun to use my voice again. And so, yeah, I think those are the biggest differences.
And what's it like living your childhood dream? Like literally, you said I want to be on that stage. You're on that stage now. Like, do you like, okay, like I did it. I don't know what to do now. Or like you're like, this is just fueling you for more.
Honestly, I like still pinch myself. Like every time I get into that tutu for the Sugar Plum, I'm actually doing it tomorrow night. It just feels like I still can't quite believe it. And I think I definitely appreciate it more every single year, just because I feel like I've really finally really matured into the Sugar Plum Fairy, and I feel like it's my favorite time just because our production has children in it, and it's like the entire company, so it really feels like a family and just like a special moment.
Yeah. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for being here. This
Thank
really
you
was
for
a pleasure
having
to talk to you.
me. Thank you.